Right. Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at something pretty interesting, this opinion piece that we found, asking, is AI learning, is it actually bad for kids?
Oh, wow.
It's a big question, right?
Yeah.
And the piece is titled Feilni Yura Hoko, which is Korean for, is AI learning harmful to children's growth? So right off the bat, pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, definitely thought-provoking.
And the author kicks things off with this metaphor that I think is so interesting. They compare using AI tools for learning to, those mess-free finger painting kits?
Oh, yeah.
Where the kids, push the paint around under plastic wrap.
Right.
And it just makes you wonder, are we sanitizing the learning process a bit too much in this age of AI?
Well, I think it's a clever comparison. And, it really kind of gets at the heart of this growing concern, I mean, in our quest to make learning efficient and driven by technology, are we perhaps overlooking the crucial role that, hands-on and sometimes messy exploration, the kind of things that kids do, are we overlooking that role that it plays in child development?
Yeah, and the author actually talks about their own childhood love of finger painting,
Yeah.
Like they remember the textures and the smells and just that pure joy of experimenting.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, do you think there's something about that tangible, sensory experience that's so important to how kids learn?
I think there's definitely more to it than just nostalgia. I mean, there have been a lot of studies, that show that when children are engaged in hands-on exploratory play, they're not just having fun, they're actually developing really critical thinking skills, problem-solving abilities, and even resilience. Think about a child who is building a tower out of blocks.
Yeah.
They're learning about structure, about balance, about cause and effect.
Right.
And if the tower falls, they learn to adapt and they modify their approach and they try again.
Right. Yeah.
And, these are skills that can be harder to cultivate when you're looking at just a purely digital or AI-driven learning experience.
Yeah, it's like, giving a kid a prepackaged science kit.
Exactly.
Versus letting them loose in the kitchen with, baking soda and vinegar and who knows what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But on the other hand, though, the author also brings up how, some teachers are actually turning to AI for help with things like brainstorming essay topics, for example. So isn't there a sense in which that can actually save teachers time? Isn't that a way to make things more efficient in the classroom?
Well, it can be, yeah. And let's face it, teachers they are stretched so thin. They're juggling huge class sizes. They're often dealing with limited resources. So AI can definitely offer some benefits there. Imagine, for instance, a program that can help students to organize their thoughts or even explore different perspectives, maybe even help them to overcome writer's block. I mean, that could be a game changer for a lot of learners. But there is a potential downside that we have to consider here. If students become overly reliant on AI to generate ideas for them, it could potentially stifle their own creativity and their own originality. They might even start to see AI as this ultimate authority instead of just, a tool to help them augment their own thinking.
Yeah, so it's like we need to make sure kids understand that AI is a tool, right? Like a calculator or something. It's not like the ultimate source of all knowledge.
Exactly.
They can help us, but it doesn't have all the answers. But then I'm thinking, wouldn't AI actually be able to do a really good job at tailoring learning to each child's individual needs? And wouldn't that be a good thing?
Well, personalized learning, it is a very powerful concept. And I think AI could definitely play a part in that. Imagine a system that can analyze a student's strengths and weaknesses and then it adapts the curriculum to fit their specific needs.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be incredibly beneficial, especially for students who might struggle in traditional learning environments. But we do have to consider the other side of that coin.
Right.
What if this hyper-personalization, what if it creates echo chambers?
Ooh, yeah.
Where students are only exposed to information that already confirms their existing biases. So we have to make sure that AI is being used to broaden horizons,
Yes. Not narrow them.
Not to narrow them down.
Right. We don't want to create a generation of kids who can only think one way.
Exactly.
And speaking of echo chambers, the article also talks about the impact of AI on literacy, especially, in this digital age that we're living in. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. What comes to mind when you think about AI and literacy?
Well, the author brings up a really good point, which is that literacy rates, they have been declining.
Yeah.
And there's no one single cause for that. But the way that we consume information now, which is thanks in part to technology, it definitely plays a role.
Right.
Kids are bombarded with, short form content constantly, tweets, TikToks, you name it. Their attention spans are just,
Pulled in every direction.
they're pulled in a million different directions. So the question then becomes, how do we cultivate a love of reading, a love of really deep thinking in a world that's so geared toward, instant gratification?
Yeah, it's a tough question, and it kind of leads to another concern that the author brings up about this whole idea of an AI fact trap. They're worried that kids might be accepting everything that AI generates as absolute truth without questioning it, without learning how to evaluate information critically.
Right.
I mean, we've all seen how AI can mess up, right? Like, it can generate some pretty convincing information.
Yeah.
But it can be completely false.
Absolutely. It's a very valid concern. I mean, we are living in an age of information overload,
Yeah.
Distinguishing fact from fiction is becoming more and more challenging all the time. And it's really more important than ever now to make sure that young people have the skills to really navigate this digital landscape critically.
Right.
And that means we have to teach them to be skeptical, to cross-check information, and to understand that even AI, with all of its capabilities, it can still make mistakes.
So it's almost like we need to help kids become these little digital detectives,
Yeah.
always questioning, always digging a little deeper. And the author actually uses this powerful real-world example to illustrate this point. And I think it's a great one to kind of kick off this next part of our discussion. They talk about how students are using ChatGPT to write essays.
Oh,
and teachers are turning to AI detection tools to catch them. It feels like we're in the middle of this like digital arms race.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on these ethical challenges that AI is, kind of throwing at us in education?
Well, it's definitely a complex issue. On the one hand, we want to encourage students to use technology to their advantage.
Right.
But on the other hand, we have to maintain academic integrity. And I really think the key here lies in changing our focus. Instead of just trying to detect AI-generated content, we need to foster a deeper understanding of what actually makes up real learning.
So instead of playing this game of, gotcha, you used AI, we should be teaching kids how to use it responsibly and ethically.
Exactly. It's about students understanding that, there's a difference between using AI as a tool for learning and using it just to skip the learning process altogether.
Right, yeah. But how do we actually do that? Where do we even begin to teach kids that?
Well, I think it starts with just having open and honest conversations.
Okay.
We need to be talking to kids about AI really early on. And not just about, what it can do, but also about its limitations.
Yeah.
We really need to help them develop that critical eye to question what they see and what they read online, even if it comes from something that seems like, an authoritative source like AI.
Yeah, we've got to give them that healthy dose of skepticism.
Exactly.
Don't just take things at face value, right? You got to dig a little deeper.
Absolutely.
But it's not just about what happens in the classroom, though, right?
Right.
Because the author was talking about how kids are using AI in their, everyday lives outside of school, too.
Absolutely. I mean, think about all the algorithms that are out there, that curate social media feeds or the personalized recommendations that pop up on YouTube. I mean, AI is really shaping their experiences and influencing their choices.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even having an impact on their social interaction.
Like, we need a whole new set of parenting skills now, just for this digital age that we're in.
Yeah, definitely.
How do we guide kids to use AI responsibly and critically when it's so intertwined with their lives?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but I think it comes down to just modeling that behavior ourselves,
Okay.
We need to show kids what it means to be, discerning consumers of information, how to question these algorithms that are out there, and to use AI as a tool for creativity and problem solving, and not just, mindless entertainment.
Right. It's like we have to be those, digital mentors.
Exactly.
Showing them the ropes, helping them navigate this complex world in a responsible way. The author also, they kept coming back to this idea of the messy magic of learning.
Yeah.
And it seemed like they are worried that AI might be, sanitizing the learning process too much.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Do you think that's a valid concern?
I think there's definitely something to that. Remember we were talking about those blocks earlier?
Oh, yeah.
The ones that help kids develop their problem-solving skills when the tower falls over?
Right.
If AI is always stepping in and preventing those failures, are we robbing them of those crucial learning experiences? Are we creating a generation that's afraid to make mistakes?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we're so focused on getting kids to the right answer as fast as possible that we're kind of forgetting about the value of that journey.
Right.
The exploration, the learning that actually happens through trial and error.
Exactly. I mean, mistakes, they're essential for growth.
Yeah.
They help us to learn, to adapt, to become more resilient. And if we try to over-sanitize the learning process, we might end up, actually doing more harm than good.
So it's not about, getting rid of AI altogether.
Right.
It's about finding that middle ground, right?
Right.
Using AI in a way that makes learning better, but doesn't completely replace that essential human element of exploration and creativity, and even a little bit of, productive struggle.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to this, very fundamental question that the author asks. How do we learn fresh things when our teacher is an AI? And it's a question that really challenges us to rethink how we view education in this age of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and it's a question that I think all of us need to be thinking about,
Absolutely.
Parents, educators, even the kids themselves.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how we can make sure that AI tools are actually used to make learning better and not replace those core elements of human learning and development?
Yeah. Well, it's a multifaceted challenge, and there's no easy answer. But I think it starts with understanding that AI is just a tool. And just like any other tool, it can be used, for good or for bad. It really comes down to us to make sure we're guiding its use in a way that benefits children and helps them thrive in this, increasingly complex world.
Right. So we need to be aware of the potential downsides, but also be open to the possibilities. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a tricky balance to strike.
It is. It is.
But before we get too lost in thinking about what the future holds, let's kind of take stock of what we've discovered in this article so far. I mean, this has been quite the deep dive. What are some key takeaways that you hope our listeners are walking away with today?
Yeah, I think for me it was that image, that mess-free finger painting thing,
It's such a simple idea.
Yeah.
But I feel like it says so much about how AI, kind of oversimplify the learning process, like take all the mess out of it.
Yeah, it's a really powerful image. And I think it forces us to ask ourselves, are we so caught up in making things efficient and fast that we're forgetting how important it is to just explore and experiment and get a little messy sometimes.
It's like we're so focused on getting the kids to the right answer so quickly that we're missing the whole point of the journey, like the discoveries that happen along the way, the figuring things out,
Absolutely. And those are often the moments where the real learning happens. I mean, think about it. Think about learning how to ride a bike. You're not going to do it without falling a few times.
Yeah.
Those wobbly moments, the falls, they teach you balance. They teach you resilience. They teach you to get back up and try again. If we take those challenges away, if we try to make everything too perfect, too mess-free, we might actually be holding kids back in the long run.
The author also, they seemed really concerned about how AI could, maybe kind of stifle creativity and critical thinking. Is that something that you worry about too?
It is. And I think, it's not so much about AI itself as it is about how we use it. If we just treat it as this shortcut to the answer, a way to just bypass the process of thinking things through ourselves, then I think that's a real disservice to kids.
It makes me think about something you were talking about earlier, about how AI could, accidentally create echo chambers where students are only seeing information that kind of backs up what they already believe, right?
Exactly.
Like that's a pretty scary thought. How do we even make sure that AI is being used to open up their minds and not close them down?
Well, I think a big part of it is just really encouraging this culture of curiosity, and critical thinking. We need to be teaching kids to question everything, even the information that comes from AI.
Okay.
To look for other perspectives, to challenge assumptions, to really think for themselves.
So it's not about, banning AI from the classroom or acting like technology is the enemy. It's It's more about finding ways to use it in a way that actually works,
Right.
in a way that helps kids learn better. And that means not replacing those really important things that make us human, right?
Yeah.
Like being curious and creative and being able to think critically.
Well said, yeah. And I think that kind of brings us full circle back to that big question that the author asked, How do we learn fresh things when our teacher is an AI? And it's a tough question.
Yeah.
It's a question that I think we all need to be thinking about. Parents, teachers, and the kids themselves.
It doesn't have an easy answer.
Yeah.
But it's one that we need to keep asking ourselves. The whole relationship between AI and how kids develop, it's complex.
Yeah.
It's always changing. There's good things and bad things to consider. And, the choices that we make today, they really are going to have a huge impact on how kids learn in the future.
The most important thing is that we stay engaged and stay informed and, that we look at all these new developments with the critical eye, but also, with a sense of optimism. The future of learning, it's really in our hands. It's up to us to make sure that we're shaping it in a way that helps our kids thrive in this amazing world that's changing all the time.
That's a great point to end on. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
You're very welcome.
And to all you listeners out there, keep those minds curious and keep those conversations going. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into whatever fascinating topic we uncover next.